Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Welcome to What We've Been Playing. I'm joined by my co-host, Corinn, the SuperBlond nerd. How are you today, Corinn? What's going on?
Hey nerds, what's up? I'm doing good, Mackenzie. How about you?
I'm doing wonderful. Guardians of the Galaxy has been released. May is here. Summer is almost upon us. And we've got so many games that we're excited to talk about with you here. So let's get right into it. Corinn, why don't you start us off with the game that you've been playing?
I will start with, I think I talked about this game last time, but I've been playing a lot of Tapestry, and specifically with the Futures and Fantasies expansion. I only had played maybe two scenarios or two games of it, so two different types of civilizations and two different types of the city maps, civilization maps. So we played, gosh, I don't even know how many more times we played this like past week, but it's been super fun. We've really enjoyed trying to explore all of the different civilization mats or city mats with capital city mats and different types of civilizations. So this week I played the Werefolk. They call them the Werefolk, the Wee Folk, which are tiny little peoples. I played the Psionics, which are people who basically can see an alternate dimension and kind of choose where they would rather go for the future. And did I play anyone else? I played a lot of the folk. They had a lot of folks. They had like merfolk, wee folk, werefolk. Maybe those are it.
They just love the naming convention.
Yeah. So, but it's been really fun, and we've both played the majority of both types of like the people, at least being able to kind of see how the other person experienced. I was genies as well. That was another thing I was. And then for the civilization maps or the capital city maps, we've been able to, that's like the fun thing about it, is because while maybe I'm not playing with the netherworld my husband is, and I'm able to kind of see how he's handling it. And so that's been like really fun. So we've been really exploring just this expansion. And I really do think it adds a fun element to the whole game of Tapestry. I'm a big fan of fantasy. So adding that into it, along with more of kind of like the sci-fi-ness to it as well, with futures, with a lot of the technology cards. You have super speed, weather control, see the future, mind control, all of those types of things as well. So it's really fun to see how they incorporated such fantastical and supernatural elements into the game of Tapestry. Probably my favorite thing game-wise has been the charmed Tapestry cards, because the way that we looked, I think we had talked about this too, Mackenzie, because we weren't sure what the rule was, and I think I was incorrect, is when you play down the, or was I correct? I don't know. You play down the Tapestry card, and if they have the charms on either side of the Tapestry card, as long as there is a Tapestry card that meets that charm, like lines up with that charm, you get that charm. You get that little added bonus into your gameplay. But I think the way that we read the rules was, if like you start with one Tapestry card that has a charm and it's on the left, which means it's by the fire, making fire, you're not going to be able to activate that charm. But overall, I think the charms really do add just a little extra added bonus, and able to make the gameplay a little bit longer and a little bit more fortuitous for you. So, yeah, I'm rambling about Tapestry again because I'm really enjoying this expansion.
What were these standout moments from your games? Any factions that you loved playing? Any of the mats you're like, ooh, this is my jam?
We both, ironically, both of us have realized that the City in a Bottle is super hard, because you can't place landmarks. You are only using the income houses. If you get a landmark from going on to the next tier of the progression track, you get 6 points, but the landmarks aren't going to be able to help you fill up your city any faster, which is kind of a bummer, but it just makes it that much more strategic. I played the Werefolk, and probably one of the standing out moments for me was you flip a space tile, and if it lands heads up, if you see like the picture of the space tile, exploration tile, your feral nature takes over, and you get certain
What?
bonuses because of that. And then if the space tile is face down, you are like civilized. You have control of your wolf form basically, and you get a different type of bonus as well. So it was fun. But so every time that I flipped, I always landed face down, which means I was like in control. So that was, I think, a little bit more of a bonus, like a because I think I got to advance on a track, and then if you are feral with the space face up, you regress a track.
Oh,
Which is kind of
interesting.
like, yeah, it's neat. Yeah, so I just couldn't believe though every time that I flipped, 50-50 chance, but I was civilized. I was in control the whole time. So I thought that was
Your
funny.
incognito werefolk. That's
Yeah,
interesting, though. I like stuff like that where things can potentially go wrong, but you can
yeah,
plan for it. It's
yeah,
sort of the same thing with the science die, where you're like, okay, if I do this science action, I need to make sure that all of these things, I'm okay with skipping them. Like that's
yes.
fine. Whatever result happens, then I'll be cool with the randomness. So you can choose to control it, or you can just go for it and just ignore it and just see what happens. So I like that
Yep.
you can choose how you interact with it.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was really fun. A neat little add to your gameplay.
Excellent. Anything else to add about Tapestry Fantasies and Futures?
I don't think so. Like I was saying, I think this was supposed to be the final expansion. Will it be? Who knows? I just can't like think of any other ways that they can add to it. But I think if they ended it here, I think it's fine. It's fine.
I agree. I think they've explored a lot of things. I definitely think they could just make more and more stuff expansions. This is surprisingly one of their like most heavy hitters, which is wild to me that this game does so well. But yeah, people love this. They like that concept of just mixing and matching all these powers and abilities and going up tracks, doing small little actions with satisfying gameplay. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that people are enjoying it. And it is one that I do have fun playing. Excellent. So that is Tapestry, the Fantasies and Futures expansion. Well, if you are joining us in the comments here, let us know what you think about these games that we're talking about. If you're joining us live, we'll make sure to feature them here on the video so that we can get some discussion going. Curious to hear your thoughts on all the games we talk about, and we'll start off with Tapestry, Fantasies, and Futures. Now, moving on to the second game. This is one that I got opportunistically. So this is not one that I was planning on buying. This is Camel Up, the card game. So we just had a gigantic swap meet of games on Saturday, and Saturday night, our local game store, Petrie's, they did an awesome big game trade things, and we were able to get rid of 33 games on that day. It was awesome. So got a bunch of stuff moved out, and I only have 5 left at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 left. So 4 games and 1 painted dragon miniature that I accidentally got an extra copy of. But got rid of a bunch of games and turned a bunch of them into store credit as well, which is great. Love that Petrie's does that. And this was like $12 or something like that. So I was like, yeah, just throw it in. It's based off of a game I already love. I rate the original Camel Up a 10 out of 10. So I was wondering how this was going to approach this system. So if you're unfamiliar with the concept of Camel Up, it is a betting game that has a race going on. So you're not in control of any of the camels in the original Camel Up, but that's where this one differs. In this game, you actually have the opportunity to do a lot of influencing on the race that's happening in the forefront. So the game is a card game, but it actually takes up more space than the original because you lay out all of the cards onto the table to make the track. So when you're done, the board is going to look something like this, where you have the racetrack in the center, you have all of these piles of cards that represent the different bets that you can take, and then you have the camels that move around. You've got different decks that you're going to be shuffling into, tokens that you're interacting with, but that core structure of there's a race and you're betting on what happens in the race still remains. So every round is split into 2 different portions. First, you have like a preparation phase. You reset the decks, you deal out some cards to each player, but then each player has the opportunity to add cards to this central deck. And instead of rolling dice, which is what happened in the original, that deck is going to be manipulating and moving the camels. It's super fascinating because you get to maybe draw 6 cards, and then 3 of them will get discarded, 2 of them will get added to the deck, and then 1 goes face up. But if you're playing with a larger player count, maybe you only get to add 1 to the deck, and then 2 random ones get in. And I actually enjoy that because there's some unpredictability with the camels. But if you get to lower player counts, you have a lot of manipulation and control and planning on what the camels are actually doing and where they're going to end up. The twist with Camel Up and why it's called that is the camels, as you can see here, will stack on top of each other. And if a camel moves, it carries everything on top of it. So you are trying to, with the knowledge that you have of what's in the deck, predict where these camels go. So after that preparation phase of setting up that deck, then you start the core round. And this core round has you using up to two actions a turn. One action is a manipulation action of some sort. You're either going to move the camels, put these cards that can maybe manipulate. If they stop, they move an extra space. If they stop, they go back a space. Or you can use one of the cards that's in front of you. That way you have a bit even more information as what's going on here. And then the second action you take is a bid, and that's optional. So you can decide to either bet on the leg, which is when that deck of movement cards runs out, or the entire race. So the entire race is made up of multiple legs based on how long it takes for the camels to get to that finish line. So you're having to decide in the moment, okay, which do I want to do first? Do I want to bet first? Do I want to do this first? But most of the time, you're always going to be doing your movement first so that you can see where they go, and then take the bet. That way you have the most information possible. So it felt a little rote there with the order, but as you got closer to the end, once that deck was depleting, then it became a little bit more interesting with the ordering sequence of those actions. But you are taking those two actions, next player goes, and you do this until that deck runs out. Now, this is a little bit of a hiccup for me because it took the streamlined nature of the original Camel Up and added that extra phase and those extra decision points. And that's something that I think actually drags this game down a little bit because it has taken away that wow factor, that engagement factor, and has put it into this more methodological, thoughtful process where you are thinking and sitting and planning based on all of these actions that you have made. People are either going to love this version or they're going to dislike it, or they'll be a little bit like me where I can appreciate it. I think it's got some great ideas. It's fun. I'm happy that it fits in a box this big. Am I ever going to pick it over the original Camel Up if I have an opportunity? Probably not. Am I going to take this one maybe on a plane as opposed to the original Camel Up? Probably. So this one is a cool concept, but I think because of adding that additional action and adding the planning, it's going to slow down this experience because you aren't making as many tactical plays, but more strategic plays because you have that knowledge going into this experience. It's a very strange concept, and I'm curious to see how it's going to play out over this. Now, John Franklin is my dad. He is asking, just got this one as well, hoping that it's as good as the board game. Want to turn it to a deck of mini games for backpacking. Now, do keep in mind, this is not a very small version of the game. It does require a bunch of tokens as well, and the camels themselves. So I'm not sure how that would translate to like a small deck of cards because you do need all of these other components, and the table space is pretty grand. So that's something to be aware of. But I do not think it is as good because it is missing that wow factor, and it's taken away that tension because you have that prior knowledge. And that's what I enjoyed so much, having to make these bets with that limited knowledge of who can actually go, but the possibility of crazy things that can happen because of the randomized order and predicting when that's going to happen. Now, this brings me to my first question here. Well, Corinn, before I move on, do you have any questions on this one? Any things you want to know about this? Have you had any interest in trying out Camel Up?
I think you've talked about Camel Up before, the original game. But it's just and maybe I'm not understanding, because you were saying that each turn you can either take a bet or do a different action, or up to two actions per turn.
Yes, so you get to do up to two actions per turn, but you always have to do one of the manipulations or movements. Okay. So the betting is optional. You can bet on that race right now, or you can bet on like the entire race.
With the original game, can you only bet at the beginning, or is it kind of the same thing if you can choose to bet something else like as the game progresses?
In the original game, you have one thing that you can do on your turn: manipulate or bet. And so you are constantly battling with yourself of, am I going to use the information I have to make an informed decision, or am I going to bring out more information, but then everybody else gets an opportunity to use it before I do? And I thought that was an amazing choice because it's a push your luck system. It's an I split you choose almost, where you are giving information, but everyone else gets to use it before you do. I love that. That's such a great choice.
Okay, cool. That's what I was trying to get the difference on.
No problem. So the question that this was leading me to, though, is when is it worth slowing down a game to increase options and choices? Some of my favorite games have lightning quick turns, but the options are gigantic. Every single turn, you get to do so many different things. Whereas some games fall into this pitfall where, hey, you get to take 5 actions on your turn, and they suck. It's like, oh my gosh, the game comes to a screeching halt when you get to somebody's turn, and it's 25 minutes before I get to do anything. And that really grinds my gears, because I think that there is a healthy balance between having a bunch of options and having constant engagement. So I think that's something huge. One of my big examples I want to bring with this, and this is very different than Camel Up, is Terra Mystica. So Terra Mystica is this gigantic strategy game, but on your turn, you do one thing. But that one thing is so impactful that the entire game system itself is about timing, your timing adjustment, the player reaction, and the expansion even adds even more options with adding these little boats that you have to plan around. And it didn't change the amount of actions you take on your turn. You still get to do one thing. You just have more options and more to consider, but that engagement is still there because you have that one single action at a time. And that's another thing that I think that the Camel Up card game fails on, is the fact that it adds more actions without necessarily adding more decisions in those actions. So it has slowed down the game while getting rid of some of the tension as well as the momentum. So not a big fan of that. Corinn, what do you think? Is there an example where this slowing down to increase options, when is it worth that? Is that even a thing? I think no. I don't think it's worth slowing down a game to increase that. Personally, I think that you can increase options without slowing down the procedure.
Yeah, I feel like Tapestry is a good example of that. I do think that the game feels like it's slowing down as you go from your first phase to your second phase to your third phase, like the final exploration or before your last income turn, because you are it. But that's more of a what is it called? Like a snowball effect, where if depending on where you are on your track, you're still only doing one thing, which is moving up on one particular track. But if for instance, it's a science track, it then allows you to move up on a other track. So you're able to still do multiple actions, even though it's still the one action. But that does elongate the move a little bit. So I do think in that sense it's slowing down, but I don't think it's slowing down as significantly as like what you were talking about, Mackenzie.
Gotcha. And one thing that actually is very similar to what you're talking about there is Wingspan actually does a really good job of that, where Wingspan has you taking bigger and longer actions every single round, but you're taking less of them. So I think that's a really great way to balance that, where you're taking about the same amount of time every single round, but because you're taking less actions in later ones, your turns can be a little bit longer. So I think that's a great balancing factor here. We've got a comment here from John. He says, limited actions of still multiple options allow for faster gameplay and more engagement from the players. That's the better way to go. And I totally agree. I think having a lot of options, but still having that faster gameplay is the way. It's the same reason that I was a little disappointed and why I can't rate Oath higher, is because those player turns are just so dang long. I love that game. The game system is so cool, but the downtime is absolutely killer, and you are not doing a lot. And when you are, everyone else is not doing anything. There's really no reactive points on a person's turn. So I wish that they had more time in development for that, to shorten that action system, because that is one thing they said during their development notes, that that's something that they were planning on, but because of the pandemic, they had to halt on it and just went with that original concept of these longer player turns. So that's the slowing down a game to increase options and choice. And it's why I can't recommend Camel Up the card game over the original Camel Up. So that's my recommendation for you. Go get the original Camel Up. Still the best betting racing game out there. Oh, it's amazing. I love that game so much. And it's still the winner. Got to play some of that this last weekend. So excellent game. That's Camel Up 2nd edition. And one that I played recently, Camel Up the card game. Corinn, what is your second game here?
So similar, kind of tangenting off of that, like a 2nd edition or a remake will be the game that is on our thumbnail, which is Seven Wonders Architect or Architecture.
I think it's Architects. I think you're right.
So that one was introduced this weekend as well, and if you've ever played Seven Wonders, it's very similar to that, where it is a tableau building drafting game where you're not making an engine, but you are still pulling out the same type of cards that they have, which is resource cards to build your wonder, military cards, science cards, and then just point cards. With Seven Wonders, you have is that one drafting? Is that what it's called? Where it's like you pass around, you take one card, pass your deck to the next person, and then they choose, so on and so forth. With Seven Wonders Architects, you have a deck to your left and a deck to your right. And those are the only two decks that you can choose from. So your options are a little bit more limited because you only see what's face up on those two decks, and then you have a mystery deck in the middle that you can also use. Now, there is a special little I guess, token that you can swap around, which is that cat token that you see right there. There are several of these cards throughout each person's deck that shows a woman with like a cat statuette, and it has a cat on the side of the points in the middle. And if you get that card, you take the cat token. The cat token allows you to peek on the mystery deck and look and see if you want to take that option. And obviously, if you have that cat token at the end of the game, you get 2 points. So that adds a little bit more of chance and, again, less options because you're only getting 2 choices or 3 choices, depending. And then with the wonders itself, you're still building a wonder, but the way that they do the wonders in this, instead of it usually with the original 7 wonders, you had a flat board, and it had usually 3 or 2 sections that you would slip a card under. And this one, you have up to probably 5 pieces that looks like you're making like that 3D structure wonder, which is really cool. And I actually really like this about 7 Wonders Architects. It's a little more satisfying because you flip over from the scaffolding to like a completed product. And each time that you flip over a piece, it usually gives you a bonus, which whether it's points or points plus extra military, or you get to take the cards from the left and right deck. So that was really fun. And then the military, unlike the 7 Wonders, with the military at the end of each round, which was in 7 Wonders, you would have battles between you and your neighbor. And if you had more shields than they did, then you would gain victory and they would actually lose points. Mm-hmm. Not in Architects. Architects is you pull out military cards. Some of them are just regular military, and then some of them have horns, little horns with them. And there are, as you can see, there's little octagon kind of stop signs. They either have peace or war. So once all of those are flipped over, each one is flipped over because the horn. So each horn that is pulled out, basically, you flip over until each octagon is flipped, and then you battle. And then nobody loses points for not having military. You just give the other players extra points because they won the military battle. And then all of the octagons get turned over again. And then as more and more cards are being pulled, more horns will show up and there might be another battle. There might be 5 battles within the whole game. There might be 2. It just depends on how many military cards are pulled, because each wonder that you choose, like whatever wonder you decide to go for at the beginning of the game, each deck is curated. I'm not sure if each deck has, like, some have more military than others. But you have like kind of an equal chance, or depending on what your neighbors have, you might have more of a chance for military, you might have less. And then I'm sure there's a fixed amount in the mystery pack. But overall, I think the gameplay itself is simpler than 7 Wonders in the sense of there's not minus points, and then instead of there being a limited of 3 rounds, it's whoever completes their wonder first.
So they took it and they've made it a big race. Cool.
Yeah. And then those green circles are the science track. The science track is very similar to how you did it before, where you collect either 2. With this one, you get 2 of the same science symbols. If you get 2 of the same science symbols, you get one of those green circles, and those will be laid out for you, like 3 open ones that you get to choose.
Gotcha. And that seems to be borrowed from the 7 Wonders Duel. So
yes, yeah. And then if you get 3 of the 3 different symbols, then you can also choose from the science track. And then each of the each of the wonders have, again, different bonuses. So for Babylon, that one's very science focused. Okay. So you get like one of the pieces that you flip over, you just get a free science circle. And then Rhodes, I think it is, you get extra military. So yeah, it just depends on the wonders. But I think overall, I think it's a little bit simpler gameplay. Again, it was super easy to teach my parents. I think 6 of us played. Yeah. So that worked out really well. So it's just a little bit simpler, I would say. Not that 7 Wonders is that complicated, but this just makes it a little bit more maybe streamlined, a little bit simpler. I'm not sure. I've really enjoyed playing both. So I think it just depends if you like the drafting versus kind of the luck of the draw. I mean, not that...
Out of the two, which do you prefer? Which one would you go back to?
That's a great question.
I'm surprised you didn't prepare for this one.
I think, honestly, like thinking about it now, I'm fighting my aesthetics because I really like the satisfaction of like flipping each piece over and seeing the wonder come to life. But the thing that's missing here is there's no guilds. And then that kind of, it's a little bit more strategy with Seven Wonders, where you were like, I only have 3 rounds, 3 ages to get through and do all of my wonder pieces so that I get all those points, as well as trying to then at the last round get some guilds and stuff. So I think there is that level of a little bit more thought and strategizing with the original Seven Wonders. But I really like this version too. So I would say I'd probably go back to Seven Wonders, but I would absolutely not be against playing Architects either.
And then last question, would this be one that you recommend for our library?
Okay, what do you have?
What do we have? Well, if
everything.
You go sidegamecode.weebly.com, you can go check out our library. But we have the original Seven Wonders, the second edition, actually, with the expansion content for it. So do we need to grab this one? Is it that much more approachable, or would you recommend something else in its place? What would you think?
I mean, I would recommend it, especially like Mackenzie, I know you work with a lot of kids, so I think this would be a really good approachable, like I think the kids would pick it up really quickly. And then again, it's that little bit more luck of the draw versus strategizing. So depending on how methodical you want your kids to be, basically. I think it's a great one. I think even maybe this is a good kind of starter version of Seven Wonders and then going into Seven Wonders.
Got it.
Because I think it's a very well-made game.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Any other things on Seven Wonders Architects?
I'd be interested to see if they do expansions for Architects with like more different wonders and stuff. Because that's like one of my favorite things, of course, because aesthetics. So
of course,
it looks very nice.
What would you like to see?
I don't know, like more mythical wonders. I'm trying to think.
Just sort of what they did with like the Wonders packs for the original Seven Wonders. Yeah. We just have more variants.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple of quick comments here. We have John saying that the anxiety and tension that is built with drafting is pretty fun in Seven Wonders. The agony of knowing what you're giving away. I agree totally.
True.
I love drafting. And
because you don't know what you're missing out with the the things at the bottom until you're pulling up that card that you decide to take, and they're like, of course, there's a card that I want on the underneath it. So, and then you hope that your neighbor isn't going to take it from that option to the other option.
Oh,
no, that's great. Yeah.
And then a quick callback from the last one here about the quick actions versus longer actions for more decisions. Years and years ago, when you started cleaning gaming, I had you play a game called Divine Right by TSR. Too many things to do during your turn, and the case is. I believe it set your opinion about the matter. I think so. I think that just in general, the engagement is not even just more engaging just overall, but because there are more turns happening more successively in between your turn, and it's happening at a quick rate, things are always changing, and I love that. I appreciate that a lot. So when games you're doing something impactful, and you're able to react to it immediately, I like that a lot. So I think I look for that in games quite a bit. Excellent. So that is Seven Wonders Architect, Corinn's second game. My second one is actually an expansion, a scenario pack for one of my favorite living card games. This is Arkham Horror, the card game, but this one in particular is called Barkham Horror. So my friend Anthony was over with a couple of my other buds, and he had been really wanting to try the Barkham Horror scenario. This thing is out of print, very hard to get. It was an April Fool's joke a while ago for this mythical cosmic horror game where you are investigators in the 1920s who are investigating all of these awful, horrific things, trying to figure out what's going on. But in Barkham Horror, they do a little bit of a spin on it, where instead of going to Arkham, Massachusetts, you are now in Barkham, Massachusetts, and everybody is personified through anthropomorphic dogs and cats. Oh my goodness, this expansion is great. And I'm going to give you the best hot take ever here. Barkham Horror is the best way to introduce people to Arkham Horror, the card game. I don't think it's the starter deck. I think it's this scenario. Barkham Horror, the card game, puts you in a story. It's hilarious. It's thematic. It's fun. It allows you to build decks, and your decks are specific usually to a single color. It's easy to give somebody a stack of cards and say, hey, build a deck using these cards, and they're able to sit down and do it. Most of the investigators all have their own unique color that they're able to dig into. You can do more complicated deck builds, but at its core, get some weapons, get some events that sound interesting, and make some skills. We all built decks in less than 10 minutes. We're ready to go. Started this scenario. And then the scenario itself, without getting into too many spoilers, is based around you trying to investigate what's going on in the city. Interacting with these terrible creatures, looking at different locations, using all of the different facets that exist in Arkham Horror, the card game. And I love this so much because not only are you having tests that matter, you have multiple ways to tackle problems, whether it be through fighting or clue getting. And because of the way that the card pool for Arkham Horror is created, you get to tackle each of those problems in unique, interesting ways based on the colors that you decide to play as. I love this so much, and the theme permeates every single bit of artwork. And hilariously, a lot of these cards have, like, just take a look at this. Dog monocle, hunted by Beckets, squirrel. These are so much fun. No spoilers, once again, on the actual arc of the scenario, but I think that this is one of the best experiences that you can have with Arkham Horror, and it's a shame that it's out of print, and I hope that people can get an opportunity to grab it. So glad that we got this played. It was so much fun. I'm super happy that we got a chance to try it again, and this one is a great pick up and go style, which I love. You can just have a great scenario of it, and I think it is almost the perfect Arkham Horror experience just to get people introduced, but also if you're a veteran, being able to tackle it with unique, interesting ways. So love Arkham Horror. What do you think about this one, Corinn? Have you tried Arkham Horror, the card game?
I have not tried Arkham Horror, the card game. I've heard it is, well, because there's Arkham Horror and then Mansions of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that both are very praised, and we love some cosmic horror. So I love this. I would absolutely get this. I'm sad that it's an April Fool's joke, but also makes perfect sense. That is so funny, though. Those bat cats, basically, those were scary.
Cat cats.
But that's so funny. It's hilarious. That's so cute.
And the entire package is a love letter to the Arkham Horror franchise. I love it. These are all riffs and puns off of the characters and the cards that exist. So it's great for people that enjoy Arkham Horror, the system from any game, as well as those who are just getting into it. I got to play as Jacqueline Canine, and she has like this chew toy of doom. So powerful. It's like a little tennis ball. Hilarious. So I think that it's so much fun. I love it. And this got me thinking. My second question for y'all here today has to do with animal rethemes. What animal rethemes would you love to see? And one example that we came up while just thinking of the question is Tifa Tashin and Good Critters. Like, this is a retheme that I didn't know that I would enjoy. I still think I might prefer the original political theme more, but I still think that's a pretty cool retheme, the Mafia Zoo switch from that political aspect. So what animal retheme would you love to see in board games? And is there a game that you're like, don't touch this with an animal retheme? I'd like to hear that too. So leave a comment below. I'm curious to hear what you think. Corinn, what's a game that you would love to have rethemed with animals?
This would be interesting because I was just looking at my shelf, and I'm like, what would be cool with animals? Because there's a lot that already have animals.
Yeah.
Two I'm looking at, which would be cool. I don't know if they would ever do this. Scythe.
They did do that.
What?
It's called My Little Scythe.
Oh my
It's like Scythe for kids. It's literally the animal retheme with like My Little Pony bubblified artwork. Version of Scythe for kids. It's a legit thing.
Well, I would think it would still be more of, I was thinking because with Scythe, each of the factions have like an animal that already like comes with their like leader. So just make the animals the leaders. Kind of like combine, merge the two. So like Rusviet would be a tiger, and if I could think of any of the other names, the Germany place. That's so cute.
Look at them.
So they do have them.
They legitimately did
My Little Pony, but with I thought they were actual ponies, but no, they did exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly what you described. You're right. That would be great. It's so great they
Look
did
at that. I did it, you guys. It was my idea.
You channeled it into the pack.
That's really
Amazing.
cute, though. Um, oh, I love that. The other one I was looking at was Arnak.
Okay.
Just it again. I think it would kind of fit with the like make it for kids, cute little wild, maybe jungle animal explorers
Mhm.
checking out and investigating.
It makes sense to me.
I don't think that it has to be kidified like with Barkham Horror. They still it's very
Yeah.
adult, but it's also like hilarious because it's dogs. So
And some of the things in Barkham Horror are like hella creepy. You look at them and you're like, oh my god, what have they done? And it's like a grotesque monster, and you're like, oh, and you can still clearly tell that there's like a bit of a cat in there or a dog, and you're like, oh.
right. I was
So
immediately thinking I was like Cthulhu. Like what is it supposed to be? Like do
yes,
they
the
go
Call of
that far?
Cthulhu.
The Call of Cthulhu. Yeah,
It's so funny.
but
So
that's
Lost Ruins of
hilarious.
Arnak, another good choice. So I
Yeah.
was thinking very similar on the same lines with you, where I'm thinking of these larger Euro games. It brought my
Mhm.
mind brought myself to Everdell, where it's a nature theme, but
Yeah.
ultimately it's like a big tableau builder. But the animal theme works. So I was thinking maybe things like Boon Lake or Dice Realms, where you would add some
Mm.
color and splash to these style things. But the game that I actually think would be really cool with an animal retheme, and they've actually done this with a Christmas retheme, is Pictures. So Pictures is a party game where you are trying to describe things using manipulatives.
Ooh.
Uh, Trying to describe pictures. And I would love an animal version of this where the pictures
Oh.
are basically just new animals that you're trying to describe. And a lot of the manipulatives in the original had you using different objects to create shapes. Like, for example, you might have a
Mm.
bunch of rocks and you have to use those rocks to explain what picture you're trying to describe. Or in this case, you have this little mosaic thing with only 9 cubes and you're using that to show what this image is. So I would love an animal retheme of this where maybe the manipulatives that they include, because generally the expansions have 2 extra ways to describe
Mhm.
things. I would love to see one. Oh, I wrote it down here so I didn't forget. Oh, yes. Using things that have to do with like lengths or weights where you're comparing animals, where you're having to
Mm.
use your sense of touch and feeling as opposed to
Yeah.
just this visual clue and
Yeah.
expression. So I think that having like a couple of weights and you give a weighted thing to the next person and they have to feel it and that's your clue. And you have to figure out, okay, based on what I'm holding, which is that supposed to mean? What animals does that relate to? Or maybe a sense of touch. This happened in Pictures actually, where they gave you a bag and they just give you a bunch of random things. You put them in the bag, you pass it to the person. They reach in, they touch them, and then based on what you felt, all the different objects,
Mm.
that's what your clue was. So I think that
Nice.
would be so much fun. Or having to communicate like that. I love that style of very abstract ways of communication, and I think that branching to different senses is a great approach for Pictures, in my opinion. So that would be my animal retheme is Pictures.
I definitely think they could do that with like faux leather and like other
Yeah,
things to
exactly.
like replicate scales or like weight, like you said, or
Mhm.
um, fur and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that and there's so many animals, so you don't know.
Agreed. And it'd be
Very
really
cute.
funny because in the original, it's not just animals. So you like mix and
Yeah.
match, and you have to describe a house using like fur and stuff. So I think that'd be
Oh
really
no.
funny. The crossover, and people are like,
Yeah,
it's clearly this. No, it was a garage, but that's fine. I think that'd be hilarious. So I would love that crossover personally.
that's
So
cool.
that
I like that.
is my game. That is Barkham Horror, the card game. Corinne, what is your last and final game for today?
Well, speaking of dogs, I just played this adorable push your luck dice rolling game called Spots.
Spots.
Spots. I had never heard of it before. It's very cutely themed. It's just with adorably, like, really nice art drawn dogs. At first, I thought it was like all Dalmatians because that's what it is mainly. It's like black and white,
Okay.
but they have all different types of dogs and they all have names and it's very cute. So what you do,
Oh my gosh, it's adorable.
yeah, you roll dice and you have a yard, and basically you bust if you get a sum of your dice to 7. 7 or no, I'm sorry, over 7, you bust. But basically what you're doing is you are collecting 6 dogs. In order to, and each dog has, as you can see, like on the picture, a certain amount of dice with the number on it, and you're trying to roll your dice and match those onto your dog to complete it and score your dog, get to the next dog. And you're getting 6 of those. The way that you are doing rolling your dice, there are going to be a set of tricks that you can choose from. There are usually, I think there's like 2 mainstay tricks, and then there are a plethora of different types of tricks. So you can choose to roll 2 dice, then do something else. Usually it's roll an extra die. You may roll an extra die, or you can re-roll the dice in your yard, your buried yard, in order to hopefully like change those numbers so you're not close to busting. So you're just, again, luck of the draw, as well as there are treats. Treats help you re-roll as well, and certain tricks allow you to get treats so that you can re-roll and not bust. But look at how cute they are. They're so small. Yeah, so those are the back of the cards. That's what they look like when you score your dogs. The front of the cards are like black and white. And then all of those tricks, as you see, there's roll over, howl, beg, each one. So the red ones are the mainstays. Those are the ones you can always do, which is either pick a new dog to start trying to score for, or roll over, I think, your buried dice so that you can try not to bust. The caveat with busting is, let's say you have 2 dog cards and you're really close to finishing them. You have 3 out of the 5 dice that you need. If you bust, all of those dice, including the ones on your dogs, get wiped clean. And then you have to basically start over in order to get those dice back. So it's a good push your luck game. I was crazy and bet or tried to push my luck and lost, I think, twice. Of just wiping all of my dogs. And I was like, cool, okay, good job. Maybe not do that. So.
Wiping your dogs.
Yes, but it's so cute, and there's one card that was my favorite. It was like ham, taters, and cheese or something, like just hilarious names for dogs. But it's just super cute, very themed, and just like a very simple, quick game to play, to pick up, and a very fun push your luck type of rolling game. And I thought it was just so precious.
It's cute.
Yeah.
It's cute.
It's a very fun, quick game.
What's the player interaction like on this one? Are you doing anything with the other players? Are you rolling at the same time? What's going on here?
Yeah, so the only like player interaction is when you take a trick, you flip that trick over, and then you can't choose that one for that specific round until there's one trick left. When that one trick is left, you place a treat on top of it, and so then the person who has like that one option basically can choose that trick to take the treat with it, or we'll flip back all the other tricks over and he can choose from there.
Oh, gotcha. So an incentive system. That's good.
Yeah. As well as with the scoring, you can either choose to roll, like do a trick, or score your dog. If you complete like 2 dogs by like rolling in the same turn, that's what's called fast scoring, and you can score both of them at the same time.
Okay.
And get that done. So there are like some ways where the game can all of a sudden hype up really quickly because someone just scored 2 dogs and they only have 1 dog left. And then again, like what you were saying, incentive.
Gotcha. Awesome.
And because the other colors, the non-red colors tricks, there's like 4 or 5 different blue ones, green ones, purple ones, orange. So the gameplay varies a little bit depending on what you're going for. Kind of like Cubitos, if you've ever played that. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Excellent. Anything else to add on Spots?
No, I just thought it was a great game to play over the weekend when we had like limited time seeing family, and we were just like, let's play a quick game, and we learned it really quickly and just played and was done with it, and we had a good time.
Excellent. It sounds cool. It sounds very similar, like in the vein of like Can't Stop or these dice rolling games, Yahtzee, where you're just excited for what you get, trying to push yourself as much as possible. But I think the Dalmatian thing works really well. I love that aesthetic. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's super cute.
Love it. So that is Spots. That's a new one for me. Interesting. Cool. This brings me to my last game, and this is May, the month of Guardians of the Galaxy. So, of course, I've been playing some Marvel Champions. Marvel Champions still my favorite game right now, and I got to play so much Marvel Champions. And the way that I love doing it, particularly when new movies are coming out, is making some glorious setup where you're able to really dive into a theme and make your scenario exactly what you want it to be. So, of course, naturally, I got to play with Adam Warlock and Rocket Raccoon, Gamora, and Nebula, and wow, it's just so much fun. I love Marvel Champions, but the biggest thing that makes this game stand out is the thematic nature of the characters. So with Rocket Raccoon playing his deck, his big emphasis is on the overkill mechanism when he's in the hero mode, and then messing with his technology when he's in alter ego. So on his downtime, he's tinkering, getting rid of all these weapons that he's already used and exhausted. But then when he's in that attack version, he is going to be getting extra card draw for dealing excessive damage. And it's so much fun because this character, when he was introduced, had all of these cards and that would summon more minions. So that way you actually got to do things and introduce new cards like into the fray here, where you got an additional bonus if you did overkill. And more cards have just been releasing here and there that have fed into this archetype. And now Rocket Raccoon is honestly one of the most fun characters to play in general. You're doing most of your damage with your event cards, and they all do something bonus on top of it, usually ending up into additional drawing. So that's awesome. You're getting more options as you're taking your turns, which means that you're getting all these different decision trees as you're playing. And then also, you have the main character, Rocket, who just is great at thwarting and has a kit of cards that allows him to deal with the threat. So you can sort of cover all of the different bases, but in a way that focuses on attachment and diving into unique aspects on cards using that overkill mechanic. You're trying to show off and be as flashy as possible when you murder something, trying to get excessive damage on them. And I love that so much. He's also got some really flavorful cards. Schadenfreude is one of my favorites, where he gets to heal every time he damages something on his turn. So if you were getting beat up, then you just have a lovely turn. And I played this with Rogue recently, and Rogue was able to copy this card and do a bunch of damage. And Rocket was healing as he was watching. He was like, yes, get it, Rogue. It was so funny. So I love Rocket Raccoon. He's quickly become one of my favorite heroes in Marvel Champions. He actually pushed Thor down a bit because their playstyles are very similar, but Thor is still up there in my top 5. But Rocket Raccoon is amazing. One of the best characters in Marvel Champions, and so much fun to play. And this brings me to my last question for y'all is, what games do you play as thematic scenarios? Of course, Guardians of the Galaxy comes out. We're playing some Guardians of the Galaxy themed Marvel Champions. If the newest anything comes out from Marvel, we're getting the legendary set with all the obscure characters and putting them together. Another one that I do is Too Many Bones. I like coming up with these backstories for why the villains and these other things are going to be combined.
Oh, that's so good.
Corinn, what is something that you do? What's something that you play as a thematic scenario?
This is kind of, I don't even know if it's like cheating or just works really well. We've been playing Call to Adventure a lot, which is already very much like a storytelling kind of thing. And it's very similar, where either you can, the cards you dealt at the beginning, what you're kind of choosing your path to be. For instance, I was basically Batman. I was the Hand of Vengeance. I was a pickpocket. And then, but I also was like a sworn protector. And I was just like, I'm literally Batman. But there's also the 2-player aspect where you're fighting certain villains. Same kind of thing of like, what's kind of the story? What's like the background? What's you're going for? And the same thing with right here, they have the Stormlight Archive, which works with Brandon Sanderson's story of the Way of Kings, or his whole thing. So I think it works really well, and it's fun to kind of go a little bit more into depth. So usually at the end of our Call to Adventure games, we kind of go through our stories that we have created as the game has gone on.
I think that's my favorite thing about Call to Adventure is the artwork and that tell at the end. I love the art that it's just so prominent, and you're always getting something to advance your personal story. So I like that. So besides Batman, what have been some other colorful characters that you've been able to become?
Ooh, basically the Avatar.
Nice.
One of my favorite too has been the like 3rd chapter, like your goal at the end, your hidden card there is like the Hand of Fate. And that one's really cool to like play as, because you can you're kind of like trying to sway the world to like go one way or the other, or trying to like, either you're going to protect the world or you're letting the world kind of go into chaos and squalor. So just depending on what you're choosing. Yeah, I love the way that this gameplays work. So we were replaying it because it had been a while since we had played it. We just were like, man, I love this game. Forgot how much I enjoyed this game.
And we have a comment here from John saying that enjoys K2, trying to race to the summit of a mountain against several other climbing teams. Tension building throughout, a theme that he can relate to. My dad is an avid high adventurer, so he's planning on going to the base camp of Mount Everest soon, which is cool.
Man. I mean, he was talking about backpacking, so that's awesome.
Yeah, so really cool.
That's cool.
Excellent.
Kudos to you.
So if you are watching now or later, I'd love to hear what are some games that you play as thematic scenarios, or just in general, what are some of your favorite thematic games and that storytelling that comes from it. So that is Marvel Champions. Love it. And if you haven't seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy, do yourself a favor, go watch it. The soundtrack is banging. The plot is amazing. The villain is awesome. So good. So well done. Excellent movie. So that is all the games that we've been playing, and now we're going to do that exact thing, list every single last game that we've been playing. Corinn, we'll start with you. Give me all the games you've been playing, and then some of your favorites, and then some of your least favorites.
All right. So I played seven whole games with expansions. So Temporum with its alternate reality expansion, Meadow with its downstream expansion, Tapestry with with all the expansions for Tapestry, Call to Adventure, That's Pretty Clever, Seven Wonders Architects, and Spots.
Excellent. What did you think of the Meadow expansion?
I liked it. It added more to your gameplay. There was more options. With the fish, it added you have with each fish that you collect, there's that ore that makes you move further on the track, but it's also beneficial to do that. So I did like that additional aspect to the game.
I agree. There was an interruption to the rote, take a card, play a card, take a card, play a card.
Yeah.
Now you had these things to think about. You're like, ooh, if I take this though, this can move me there. So maybe I want to choose this one before I do this one and try to find a route to do so. So I really like that. I thought that was a great interruption of the standard flow.
Yeah, and then of course more beautiful artwork, and then a whole other part of the board to play with. So yeah, I really enjoyed having that addition to Meadow. I think that was a good amount of things to add to the game.
Agreed. What was your favorite from that last week?
Oh, from playing all the games?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say Call to Adventure, just because it really reignited the joy that Call to Adventure brings about storytelling and all that stuff. I was telling my husband I really would like. They have now Epic Origins or Epic something, Epic Adventures. So I'm super curious about that. That would also be an interesting one now that I think about it. Going back to one of our questions of getting an animal theme.
I could see it.
Yeah. Again, probably more kidified, but it would be super cool still.
I could see it though. There's animal races in D&D, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then what was the one that was your lowest performer? But it sounds like you had a good time with most of them.
Yeah, I would honestly say the Temporum alternate reality expansion.
Okay.
It could have been just because of the cards that we chose, basically because those were the ones. Was it only just the bottom tier? So that you go from age 1 to age 2 to age 3, age 4, and each one has age 4 has 4 cards. Age 3 has 3 cards, so on and so forth. A lot of the ones that we had at the end of the track that you could go to, I think all just kind of had similar elements or similar kind of rewards, and it just didn't work very well with the other cards that we had for the timeline. And so it felt like either it was the same one or we could get a better deal by some of the cards that were in the higher ages.
Gotcha.
So
that's kind of awkward when you have those random setups and things just don't work together. It happens in Dominion or Legendary when you get cards that just don't work well. And you're like, well, can't really do anything exciting this game, so I'm just going to go for the big numbers.
So, and we really only played through this once so that scenario really just didn't work out. So that could have just been the way that we drew the cards. So, might be one we would I think we would try again. Because I know that my husband really enjoys that game, or did. So, but yeah, and like I said, I think it was just how we pulled the cards for that one. Because it was random.
Yeah. Anything else on this before I move on?
I don't think so. I'm just trying to think. I will also shout out for one of my favorites is That's Pretty Clever. And I will thank Mackenzie again, because he's the one who introduced us to That's Pretty Clever. And it's a banger.
It's so good. Oh, yes. I ran out of sheets in the second one. So I have to decide now. Do I want to keep on playing with pencil? Or
so what we did,
go ahead,
which I would recommend next time, is we laminated.
Yes, we have 4 laminated. So I do have laminated sheets, but I prefer doing the pen and paper. So yes, I could play it forever with laminated versions, but something satisfying.
We're keeping all the papers so that I could write the scores on the back, because we're those
Ah.
type of people who keep our scores because we do. We're hoarders in that way. But it's also fun to like kind of see how you improve in some
Oh,
games and
okay.
like all
Yeah,
that sort of stuff.
that makes sense. All right, my list of games, the whole list, 37 unique titles. The Castles of Burgundy, Abyss, Marvel Champions, Guards of Atlantis II, Planet Unknown, Darwin's Journey, Coconuts, Vegetable Stock, Grove, Ra, Biblios, Atiwa, Kites, Spirit Island, Cthulhu, Death May Die, the Isofarian Guard, Nemesis Lockdown, Blood on the Clocktower, Cloudspire, Unmatched, Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, Time Stories, Revolution, Cavendish, Marvel Legendary, Ink and Gold, Asteroid Dice, Mare Nostrum, Capital X2 Generations, Clever Cubed, Sleeping Gods, Game to Pick a Game, Arkham Horror the Card Game, Catacombs, Ready Set Bet, 5 Minute Marvel, Throw Burrito, Anomia, and Catitude. Whew. Oh, okay, so, and then my top 3 here. I had an amazing 2 games of Blood on the Clocktower. We played with the 2 new unlocked characters. We played with the Organ Grinder as well as the Vizier. So we played a total of 7 games, and whoa, they were so good. And I got to play in 3 of them, so that was awesome. So I got to actually participate. I won another game as the Poe. I'm telling you, that's like the only token I draw is the Demon, the Poe. Do you know this one?
Yeah.
Oh, you know the Poe. You know
Yeah.
the way it works. Oh my gosh. So yeah, the Poe is disgusting. So I always get the Poe, and I'm always doing these dumb things where I'm like doing triple shots at people, and I always figure out who the people who can drunk are, and then pick them in specific orders so that way I can get my timing right on the deaths. Oh, it's so good. So that was excellent. And I got to play with a Vizier, which was really hard because I couldn't talk to my Vizier. The Vizier starts as an outed evil, so everybody knows who they are. And so if I ever talk to them, immediately insights immediately makes me feel like it's just like, wow, this person obviously is talking to the Vizier. They're clearly making up a plan of some sort.
Yeah.
So I was basically like a butt to him the whole game, my partner, and I even killed him in like the last day. And I think he was a little upset about it, but we won. It was fine. It was good. I had to play Deep Undercover. And then another top is Marvel Champions for sure. That was amazing. It was great. I loved playing the experiences, putting soundtracks on the background. Marvel Champions is still the best game.
That's a great idea.
And then last top is actually Cloudspire. I played 2 amazing games of it. First one was with my brother. This was our first time playing against each other, which was super fun. And I got to be the Bronin versus his the Narora, so the energy people. And so my Bronin had these. I focused on doing a round where I didn't summon any minions. So normally you summon heroes and minions, and you send your minions out to go attack the tower. They're not really that controllable, and your opponents get points for killing them. But what I did was I completely ignored rounds of summoning minions, so that way my opponent didn't get any source, so any energy or coins basically to spend on their upgrades. And so I played a little bit of a risky game, risky strategy, but had these 2 giant characters for the 3rd wave, and then was able to crush him with all of this extra resources because I had denied him so much extra experience. So that was a lot of fun. And then I played another game with my friend Dan where I played Greege, and I got rocked because and it was a tie. Oh man, it sucks so much. It was so close though. It was such a good game. We ended up with a tie with a final tiebreaker. I made a risky play where I got down to like 1 health on my fortress. So if I took any other damage, I would lose. But I did it so that I could get some access to upgrades. Otherwise, I was going to lose on the upgrade portion, but not able to do enough damage in the final round. And it was such a close game. I think that the Greege are for sure the worst of the bugs. They have like this evolution mechanism where they can jump into source wells, but to do so, they can't be grouped. So you have to time your movement and your upgrades in a way where you're still able to get actually to your opponent's fortress gate. It's really hard because everybody can get hit by all the spires because they're not in one big stack and protected. So it's an interesting play style, but I think that definitely has been my lowest performing character. The one that I lose the most with, unfortunately, is the Greege. Bottom 3, I got rid of Atiwa, unfortunately, Atiwa Uwe game with the bats, and that one left because it just was the same every single time. Even with like these little objectives in the solo mode, I gave it a couple more tries before I left, and it had to go, unfortunately. It just doesn't hold a candle to these others like Field of Arl or my favorite Hollytow. Got to play those instead for sure. Not going to spend any more time on Atiwa, unfortunately. Next was Mare Nostrum. Mare Nostrum was taught to me by my friend Dan, and it might have been just the experience that I was in, but it felt really fiddly for what it was. It's like a civilization game where you have like this trade phase, you get all these tokens, you pass them to each other, and then you use sets of different tokens to take actions, building different soldiers, putting out these different posts, gaining resources. And overall, I thought it was fine. I don't think it was super interesting. And it was also super fiddly, unfortunately. So lots of getting tokens and placing them on the board. Not something that was super interesting to me. And then the last one, bottom one, is actually a really good week. So these were definitely the standouts, unfortunately, on the bottom. But the last one was Catitude. And this is one that I tried at one of the cons that I was volunteering at. And this is it is a self-published game, and it's about being a cat, and you're inside of a house messing with stuff. It's a cool theory, cool concept, but the gameplay was just all right. So it's not something that I'll ever go back to. And there were some pretty strategies to do. That's what it felt like, at least to me. Like I didn't feel like I was making a lot of impactful decisions on my turn, and a lot of take that. So there's a lot of ways to interrupt people and stop their actions, and so your hand starts to get drained. And it was fine. It's gonna leave my head, I'm sure, after this video. So that's Catitude. And that was the bottom three. All right, Corinn, so that's it. And the next portion is, what are you excited for next?
Ooh. So, well, hopefully Call to Adventure, the Epic Origins, or whatever the Epic one is, probably more probably more Tapestry. Probably some more. Well, I said Call to Adventure ready.
Jonathan says that his favorites recently were Cloudspire and Tapestry, all solo, and it fits right in with this episode. So glad you're enjoying, Jonathan. And yeah, the new Tapestry expansion is wonderful, and I'm glad you got some Cloudspire plays in. Which factions are you playing? Love to know.
Yeah, those are the top ones that I can think of right now. I know that there are others in my brain, but it's not coming to me.
That's okay. I actually only have 2 upcoming games that I'm really fired up to play, besides all the ones that I'm already enjoying so much. First off is Yinch. So I got this as part of that store credit trade. It's a abstract game where it's a mix between Othello and Connect 4. So it sounds really fun and it looks cool. I'm not the biggest fan of abstract games, but hopefully this is a great one. It's like the best in this series of elegant looking abstract games. So looking forward to trying it. And then the next one is the expansion for Bonfire. This is Trees and Creatures. Finally got a chance to grab this, and that is going to be giving you new player powers, new things to do in the game. So it's modular, so you can pick and choose what you're actually going to be playing. So looking forward to it. And then Jonathan's got one more comment here. It says, currently learning Arc Nova as I watch. Think I'm going to like this one too. Oh yeah, you are going to love Arc Nova. That action system is so satisfying. It's one of those ones where you just start playing it, you're like, oh, I get it. I get the hype. It's a blast. And the solo is wonderful. You'll like it, Jonathan. And there's multiple versions of the solo mode on the BGG files. So if you don't like the play pattern of the original solo that's included in the box, which I think works perfectly, it's got a built-in timer, then you can go and find that one that plays more like a real opponent. So something to consider, but I think you'll like it, Jonathan. And lastly, just Bronin. Cloudspire was a recent purchase. That's a great place to start, I think. Bronin is awesome. Even though they're simple, they're so cool. You've got all this mining that you can do, so you're trying to strategically place those and go farm those. You can decide when you want to go invest in these ridiculous characters. So I think you have a great time with it, Jonathan. I'm glad that you're liking it. Excellent. So that's what we're excited for. Corinn, anything else before we close off our chat today?
Stay tuned for, speaking of Marvel Champions, I am finally presenting my art project this week. I made a custom Marvel Champions box to hold all the cards in. So I'll be excited for you guys to see it on my channel.
Excellent. Are there any guides or how-tos? Is this something that I can look into? I use BCW boxes for pretty much all my big card game storage. Is this one I should look into?
Well, this is it's more of the customization, the look of it.
Okay.
So it's a standard wooden box with inserts. So an organization system where you can change the size of the inserts or spacing between each of the cards. So
awesome. I think that it's an awesome gift idea. So once again, if you haven't subscribed to Corinn's channel over at SuperBlond Nerd, please make sure that you do. And if you haven't subscribed to SideGame LLC either, make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. And thank you so much for all of our current subscribers. This is awesome. It's so much fun. I love the conversation. I love the comments. Thanks, John and Jonathan, for being here and talking during this chat. It's been great to just get your ideas and feedback and just in general share our excitement of board games. Corinn, anything else before we wrap up?
Nope. SideGame Strong.
All right. SideGame Strong, y'all. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.